and we get analysis as we get this chat with geopolitical analyst Aaron Gambi, who joins us on Thursdays here on Rise and Shine. Aaron, good morning to you. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. Good morning to you, Asanda, and good morning to our listeners. Happy Friday Eve.
Happy Friday Eve, and also happy, what do you call, month end Eve. Tomorrow is the last day of October. We enter November. 2025 is literally behind us.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. Time flies.
Absolutely. Well, I don't know if Cameroon feels like time flies because it doesn't feel like anything has changed in terms of the leadership of that country. President Paul Biya, the incumbent, winning another eighth or getting elected into an eighth term in office as president. The 92-year-old now receiving congratulations from the African Union Commission. What do you make of this? These sentiments of the African Union Commission in terms of congratulating President Paul Biya being president again in Cameroon?
A few years ago, Julius Malema made a famous statement where he called the African Union as a club of these old men, old madalas that just look out for their own interests. I think it feels like that if you're in Cameroon right now, or if you are a resident or citizen of Cameroon. I think that the elections in Cameroon was nothing but a sham election. There were a lot of irregularities and you know issues of violence that were recorded and manipulation of the elections. But nonetheless, it was predictable that the 92-year-old man would come back and return to power. But it is disappointing to see Mohamed Yusuf, the African Union chairperson, be quick to be able to congratulate the incumbent. And then, interestingly, he goes on to cite that, of course, there was some violence and issues post the election, but this need to be dealt with. The reason why there's violence and people on the streets is because people do not approve of the results of that election. So it is very disappointing to see that the African Union takes a step like that.
So why congratulate while also acknowledging that there is dissent? I mean, there is a crackdown on dissenting voices and there's violence. Is that not in contradiction of each of the two things in contradiction that the African Union Commission chair was voicing?
Yes, it's actually contradiction in terms because if you look at if you read the statement that was issued by him, you will see that he immediately acknowledges that there are issues around these results, but then he goes on to say we need both parties to work together, meaning the incumbent and also the opposition who has claimed that he has won the election. So remember, there's uh, Isa Chiroma who has claimed that he has won the elections. And so there's a standoff. In fact, this opposition has a stronghold up in the north. Therefore, you see that the police is cracking down on protest and dissent up in the north in his stronghold. And the African Union, all they could do is call for some sort of reconciliation and working together for national unity between the two factions, instead of actually outrightly calling the elections for what it was and maybe even demanding that there should be a runoff. But instead, they were quick to congratulate the incumbent and then begin basically just wishy-washy talking about how the country should now come together after the elections.
Then, as you say, Isa Chiroma, the opposition party leader there, is now facing legal charges and he's accused of having incited violence after the election results were made public in Cameroon. Can these legal accusations or legal charges stand?
Minister of Interior, Paul Atangaji, has made it very clear that Isa Chiroma will face a legal, proceedings because he claimed prematurely that he is the elected next president of Cameroon. Now, he argues that, in fact, in the electoral code, it's nothing that he has done wrong because the electoral code does provide for the opposition or the parties that are participating in the elections to actually tally the votes and be able to see. So they followed every polling station to see and added up the numbers to see if the incumbent was leading or in fact Issa was leading. And so this is where Issa claims that with all the results that they did, parallel voter tabulation, they were leading by 50, I think it's 54%. And Paul Biya was behind by 35%. But of course, because the Electoral Commission, the Constitutional Council has declared Paul Biya as the president, therefore Issa is on the wrong side. And yes, this could amount to all sorts of charges. In fact, even treason would be one of the charges if Issa is not careful.
Let's talk matters of economics now. Exxon, the oil giant, is expanding its operations. It wants to enter Gabon as far as its exploration efforts are concerned. It's already in operation in Nigeria and I believe, is it Mauritius? So, what do you make of this interest into Gabon?
Well, Gabon, he's going through a transition. Right now, there's a desperate need for the new president in Gabon to deliver to the expectations of the people. Therefore, I think that he's doing everything that he can to be able to revamp the economy and be able to get the country moving forward. This is the motivation behind this. But the only problem is that such multilateral corporations such as ExxonMobil, you find that usually they do invest in these countries, but also it comes at a huge cost because most of the returns end up going to these companies, and yet the people do not benefit 100% from the resources that the country owns. So this is something that we'll have to see, but I see that this is a desperate move from the new president to be able to set Gabon onto a different path, and we hope that it works economically.
And as much as it can work economically, the exploration of oil in Gabon will involve seismic surveys. These kinds of things have received criticism in previous times and in previous places from environmentalists. Do you foresee that there could be a challenge there as well in terms of protest action from environmental groups?
Yeah, and the only reason why he has a pass now, president has a pass now, is because he's a little bit popular. He's a new face, a new guy on the block after the country being ruled for over 50 years by the Bongo family. So I think that people are trying to give him a benefit of a doubt, but not until these efforts begin to be detrimental to the economy, I mean, to the environment, not until these efforts begin to show that they're not really trickling down to uplift the living standards of the people, then you will see the civil society and other people be able to oppose the government. But I think that right now the dissent is not so much because the people want to give him a benefit of a doubt.
Let's go to the Democratic Republic of Congo now. African banks are eyeing the country. Why is that?
Well, it seems like the Congo has great potential to make a lot of money for the banking sector. I think that statistics show that 1 in 10 people in the Congo actually has a bank account. So you can see that there's a need for these banks to go in. I understand one of them is ABSA that is trying to get a foothold in the Congo. But not only that, we know the Congo for what it's famous for. It's all the mineral wealth and the natural resources that it has. And so, at the backdrop of that, the banking sector thinks that they will make a lot of money going to go in there and be able to revolutionize the system as it may be.
What challenges could this pose in terms of resistance from the country, the DRC?
Well, I think the just one of the challenges could just be technological issues.
Mm.
But other than that, I think that it looks like the government in the DR Congo are on board to be able to welcome these banks to come in. There are some few banks that are operating right now, and most of them are local banks. And so you find that they're not as efficient as you would imagine. But these are some of the banks that perhaps will have problems with international bankers coming in. Already, there are a few banks from the region, including Rwanda, that have some sort of partnership with local banks and providing these services. But now it looks like this is an influx. This is a floodgate that has been opened for these banks to go into the Congo and be able to establish themselves. And I think that it's because they've seen that it's lucrative and it's going to be very profitable in the long run.
Apart from that, what does this speak in terms of the competition that is going to pose within the banking sector, not just in the Democratic Republic of the Congo, but the region in general, in terms of whether or not regulations are in place and they are tightened to ensure that all abide by the rules?
That is always a challenge. I think that it is difficult to uh, implement some of the regulations. And the reason for that is because you have some countries that do not have strict regulations on certain sectors, and while the other countries do. For example, if you look at ABSA and its operations in South Africa, this is probably very different from the way ABSA operates in Zambia or in other countries in the region. So I think that this has always been the challenge, but this is entirely up to the government of the Democratic Republic of Congo to be able to make sure that even though these international bankers are coming in, the country is able to revitalize, they're able to equip their own local banks and be able to make them competitive. Otherwise, if they don't do that, they're going to have what other countries have in the region. We have countries that actually have banks that none of them, maybe one or two, are owned by the local people. All the rest of the banks are actually international corporations that have come in. And a classic case is Zambia, for example. We only have Zambia National Commercial Bank as a bank that is owned by the Zambian, partly by the Zambian government, and another small bank. But all the other banks are all from outside. And therefore, it means that all the profits and all the investments that these banks bring in and the profits go to as dividends are paid out to the owners of these banks. So that's one way that the Congo will lose revenue if they do not, in fact, bail out or, in fact, prop up the local banks.
Should be targeting the capital, Kinshasa, or are the other cities that could pose as great opportunities for business growth and in the banking sector specifically?
For now, all of them are coming into Kinshasa, being the capital, as well as Lubumbashi, which is the second largest city in the Congo. And it makes sense because whenever you go into a country to establish business, you look at the center of strengths. You look at the focal points. You begin in these cities and then you grow outwardly. I wouldn't be surprised that in the next year or two, the same banks such as ABSA will not only be in Kinshasa and Lubumbashi, but to be in all the parts of the country and maybe even go as far as the eastern part of the Democratic Republic of Congo, which is a conflicted region.
All right, we'll leave it there for today, Aaron. Always great getting an update from you and analysis. We'll do this again next week, Thursday. You do have a great weekend.
Yeah, you too, Asanda.
Thanks. Aaron Ngambi is our geopolitical analyst joining us on Thursdays here on Rise and Shine to bring us up to speed with some stories you need to get into the know, or maybe you already know them, you want a different perspective on those stories that are happening in the Central African region of the continent. It's 6:30 Central African time. Let's get our news headlines now. Here's Matapelo.
SAB